What's going on? Welcome to My Take Is. Thank you for clicking on the video. Do me a favor, click subscribe as well. Got a lot of great stuff going on right now with the NFL season coming to an end soon. The college football playoff is going on as well. And, of course, a little bit of NBA stuff sprinkled in there as well. But today we're focusing on the college football playoff. Miami goes on the road, and they beat Texas A&M. And during this game, I felt like I was just watching carbon copies of the exact same two teams playing against one another. Neither team trusted their quarterback. Neither team could put together offensive drives because of that. Both teams have really good defenses. Both teams have fast and explosive wide receivers. And neither team could execute in the kicking game. 4 combined missed field goals on the day. So what was the difference? What allowed for Miami to score a whopping 10 points and to hold Texas A&M to only 3 points? The difference to me was Miami found a way to run the football. Texas A&M did not. Carson Beck didn't turn the football over. Marcel Reed did. 3 turnovers for Texas A&M, only 1 for Miami. 2 interceptions thrown by Marcel Reed, 0 interceptions thrown by Carson Beck. I thought Texas A&M moved the football better than Miami did. Texas A&M was way better than Miami was on third down. They were 8 of 18. Miami was only 3 of 12. Texas A&M had 326 yards of total offense. Miami was held to only 278. Texas A&M won time of possession, but they turned the ball over 3 times, and Miami turned it over once. And when you're in a game where you're struggling to score points, possessions are just crucial. And you have to possess the football and give yourself an opportunity. And when you turn the ball over 3 times, obviously, you don't do that. The last interception from Marcel Reed is going to be the one that's discussed the most. I hated those play calls. Couldn't stand them. You've got 40 seconds left. Your goal to go from the 5. You could have ran the football once. You had time to do it. You know, you got the little headset now. Call 2 plays. Go, hey, we're going to run the ball here. We're going to get back on the ball, and then we're going to run this play. You give them both plays, and then you go out and you execute. Because Marcel Reed, I thought, was much better when he was on the move. I know he didn't scramble great. I think he averaged like 1.8 yards per carry, but sack yardage is obviously part of that. But I felt like when he broke contain and was able to get out on the move, I thought that was where he was at his best. I wish they had given him the green light to scramble once, and they clearly didn't do that. So that was my biggest issue. The interception, he just threw it behind the guy. Bad throw, which is not surprising from Marcel Reed. The bigger issue, though, or I know, not the bigger issue. The other big issue, because they're both big issues. You're always going to lose if the opposing team's running back averages 10 yards per carry on 17 carries. Why Miami didn't run the ball more, I really don't know. Their offensive line, I thought, was pretty dominant in the run game. I thought their offensive line was significantly more athletic than Texas A&M's offensive line. I thought that when they pulled guards and had their offensive linemen on the move, I thought that they looked significantly better than Texas A&M's offense. And you could see it in the way that they ran the football. Miami averaged 6.3 yards per carry. Texas A&M averaged 2.5 yards per carry. Miami did a better job of controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. And when you can control the line of scrimmage like that, you have a chance to beat anybody. If you're going to run the ball for over 6 yards a carry, you have a chance. When you're going to hold the opposition to 2.5 yards per carry, you give yourself a chance immediately. Here's the thing. They're going to play Ohio State on New Year's Eve. And they might control the line of scrimmage. We'll see. It won't be to that extent. And even if they do, Carson Beck, he has to be better. Miami didn't ask him to do much of anything. I think they kind of knew that A&M was going to struggle to score. They only threw the football 20 times. Carson Beck's yards per attempt was 4.9. That's terrible. Just to let you know how terrible it is. That's only half a yard more than Phillip Rivers' whopping 4.4 yards per attempt against the Seattle Seahawks in his first game back playing football in 5 years. Not great company to be in. Okay, so he's going to have to do a little bit more, Carson Beck, in order for them to have a chance to upset Ohio State. I don't think that's going to happen because Ohio State's going to score more than 3 points, and I just don't think Carson Beck is going to be good enough to match points with that Ohio State offense that is going to score more than 3 points. Everyone's going to call Texas A&M a schedule merchant, which is true to a certain extent. This isn't like Indiana last year, who got blown out when they played Notre Dame. The Texas A&M defense was as good as advertised. The issue was Marcel Reed and that offense just wasn't good enough, and we saw that when they played Texas, even though they did hang 41 up on Notre Dame earlier in the year. Anyway, congrats to Miami, a good football team. I'm glad that they got in. And then there were 2 other games today. And I'm not going to talk about either one like specifically. Like Oregon still beating down on James Madison 48-13. Ole Miss beat Tulane 41-10. So a whopping 4-point improvement from Tulane compared to their first matchup against the Rebels earlier in the year. Is that the Lane Kiffin effect? Is Lane Kiffin only worth 4 points? I don't know. We'll see. I understand why Group of 5 teams are included in the college football playoff. If they were completely excluded, then the NCAA would have another lawsuit on their hands, and the last thing that the NCAA wants is to get sued by anybody else. So they're just like, you know what, Group of 5 guys, go ahead. I understand that we like to root for the underdog, but like, come on. These Group of 5 schools don't belong on the same field as the other teams in the playoff. Tulane and James Madison both got crushed. Both of those games were over before halftime. And I understand that we want everything in college sports to be like March Madness, but the college football playoff is nothing like March Madness, and I hate when people compare it to that. Can't stand it. In basketball, shooting variance is a very common way for teams to pull off upsets. There is nothing in football that relates to shooting variance. Like, that's just not a thing. Football is the ultimate team sport. There is no equivalent of Jack Golke, who played for Oakland, hitting 10 threes in a game against Kentucky to send them home in the first round. Like, that is not a thing in college football. Because, again, football, much more of a team game than basketball. And I've seen a couple of arguments for this in favor of these Group of 5 schools. One of them is how Power 4 schools take players from these Group of 5 schools every year. That's just a bad argument. It's a dumb argument. Because all of those Group of 5 guys are not going to play for Oregon or Ohio State or Indiana or anybody like that. In fact, Tulane's best running back last year transferred to Oregon, is on Oregon's roster, but had to ask for a red shirt because he wasn't playing enough. Okay? So there's that part of it. The other thing as well, it's not about one guy. It's about all 22. And really, it's more than 22 because your depth on your defensive line matters, and you're rotating receivers in and out, and you're usually playing more than one running back, and all those things. In college basketball, where we have upsets, if Oral Roberts has 2 players good enough to go play at Duke, then you know, they can beat a 6 seed in the first round. That's a thing. But James Madison has a bunch of dudes who are probably going to transfer to UCLA to follow their head coach, and guess what? They got dogged. Because, sure, they might be good enough to play at UCLA, but they're not good enough to play at Oregon. Okay, in college football, if you have 4 players good enough to transfer up to a Power 4 school, it's just not enough. Especially when you look at the players that are transferring up. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, when you look at the Group of 5 guys that transfer up, it's skill players, it's wide receivers, it's quarterbacks, it's running backs, it's corners, and so on. It is very rarely offensive and defensive linemen. And at this point in the year, that's how you beat the best teams in college football. You have to be stellar up front. You have to own the trenches. So even if James Madison or Tulane has an offensive tackle or an edge rusher good enough to transfer and play at an Oregon or an Ohio State or anything like that, that's not enough. You have to have 6 defensive linemen good enough to transfer up to the next level. Okay, you have to have 5 offensive linemen good enough to transfer up to the next level, because obviously the teams that you're playing against have that same level of talent in abundance. And if you have one great offensive tackle, they're just going to pick on the other side of your offensive line. If you have, one dominant edge rusher, then they're just going to double that guy and block everybody else one-on-one. and so on. So no group of 5 team is ever going to have the excess of talent in the trenches to compete with the best teams in the Power 4. Okay, now, because I'm sure that there are guys in the Tulane game and the James Madison game that will transfer up, but there's just not enough of them. There's just not enough of them. And again, most of those guys are skill position guys because it's not uncommon for quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers to fall through this through the recruiting cracks. It's not abnormal because there are a lot of quarterbacks. There are a lot of 5'10" guys who run really fast. Who can play receiver and receiver and running back in those things. But linemen don't get overlooked because finding guys that are 6'5", over 300 pounds and incredibly athletic, those guys stick out. Okay, like you can see those guys immediately. So to me, group of 5 teams will never have the talent along the line of scrimmage to compete with, the best teams in college football. Like you're not going to have that. Okay, here's the other thing that we need to keep in mind. Before the college football playoff expanded, when it was at 4 teams, it was at 4 teams for a decade. The average margin of victory in those games was like 19.5 points, a 3-possession game between, theoretically, the 4 best teams in college football. Now what you've done is you've opened it up, and you now have the 5th best team in college football playing the 23rd best team in college football, or whatever James Madison was ranked. And you're going to get routes when that happened. This is going to continue to happen. Look, I want to deal in absolutes. The NCAA doesn't want to be sued. They are not going to exclude a group of 5 team or all group of 5 teams from participating in the playoff. What I think they should do is they should absolutely have a group of 5 tournaments. That should 1,000% be a thing because Tulane is a really good football team that deserves to play more meaningful games. Same goes for James Madison. What I think they should do is they should give the one group of 5 team the option. It's like, hey, you can either be the 12th seed in the college football playoff, or you can be the 1 seed in the group of 5 playoff, and we'll replace you with, this year it would have been Notre Dame or whoever else. That's what I think they should do. Give them the option of, like, do you want to go on the road to Oregon and get crushed, or do you want to go play in the group of 5 tournaments and actually have a chance to, like, win something and hang a banner and do all those really cool things. So that's what I think that they should do. They won't do that, but I think that would help solve the problem. So that's going to do it here for the video. Thank you for watching. Again, please subscribe. I got a lot more great stuff coming out as the college football playoff continues. The NFL season, I'll have something out probably Monday, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. So again, make sure you're subscribed if you like football and the NBA as well. And I'll talk to you again soon.